Hiya, and welcome back to Adastra. Where it's the only place in the known universe where we can confidently say fuck you to a cat without being hated. Anyways, let's just jump right in. We continue to drift through infinite space, content. Despite everything, we trust the beings around us, all of us, and the others, the parents. The parents. This was all meant to happen, and though it was hard and terrible, the worst is now over. And that thought alone is enough to keep us completely relaxed, waves and waves of relief washing over us. In the cacophony of thoughts and emotions, though, something stands out. Though the beings meld together, one seems to become separate for a moment, solely to focus on us, on me. This brings me out of my trance for a bit, and I turn my attention on them. Amicus? But then, as I focus more on this being, I get a different feeling. Not him, but her. It seems like she wants to speak with me. She's not familiar, not someone I've spoken to before, but the intensity with which she is focusing on me. Hello? I reach out, but then suddenly the amalgamation of intelligence begins to pull away, and I feel myself extracted from its mass. The feeling is bizarre, and I almost miss the crowding of thoughts and feelings, of being one with many. But then I feel myself again, my body, beginning to materialize out of nothing. The nothingness around me slowly becomes something. For a moment, I'm floating in the air, then I'm being held by something solid and strong. The first thing I see is Amicus's face. He's looking down at me, grim and determined. Just as I focus on him, though, his expression changes. Marco? I shift a little, trying to focus better on my wolf. Marco! I swear to God, if it was going to play light years apart, I would have just, walked away. Suddenly, I'm surrounded by fur, getting squeezed tight against Amicus, my face pressed into his neck. Instinctively, I wrap my arms around him. Oh gods, are you real? Tell me you're real, Marco, please. He gasps the words like he's coming up for air after diving to the bottom of the lake. I'm having trouble remembering things, why he seems so upset, but I know something bad happened and now it's over, so I try to comfort him. I'm real, I'm here. My voice is strange, like I haven't used it in a while. At first I think I'm back in Amicus's room after I've woken up from the coma, still trying to convince him that everything is okay. Like we'd gone to sleep and just woken up and he wants to be reassured again that I'm not going to disappear. But then I remember that Cato came in that morning. Things fall into place like a long row of giant heavy dominoes. I suddenly sit up a bit against Amicus's chest, pushing back so I can look up at him. Wait, the fight! Cato! Amicus, are you okay? I look him over, trying to check his wounds. The blood and swelling that I'd seen in the amphitheater is gone, though. He's clean and well-groomed, and his arm seems fine judging by its sturdiness underneath me. My brief look at him is ended, though, as Amicus suddenly yanks me back against his chest, sobbing against me. I've seen Amicus cry before, back in the dungeon, but not these gut-wrenching sobs that I can feel heaving through my own body. It serves to shock me to my senses even more. Firmly, I push back against his chest, creating space between us so I can hold his face in my hands. He just looks back at me, crying openly, and I watch as the tears well out of his eyes and seem to disappear into the fur of his cheeks. I'm sure we both want to say a lot in this moment. What happened? What's happening now? What will happen? But at this particular moment in time and space, we're back together. It's impossible, but it's happening, so I cling to him again, and he just holds me as I press my face against his chest, listening to his hammering heart, squeezing my eyes shut. If this is eternity, then I'm completely fine with it. I'm not sure how much time passes, but as this thought crosses my mind a few times, my eyes suddenly fly open. I press back again, looking up at the wolf, holding his face again. Wait, if you're here, did you... I wonder suddenly if Amicus had been seriously wounded in the fight. that he didn't make it after all. But Amicus shakes his head gently, his sobs having quieted to subdued sniffles and hiccups. No, I'm fine. I won. Cato is dead. I'm flooded with relief. He strokes my hair gently, slowly, and I wonder why he still looks so sad. But how are you here? Aren't I? I look around at the infinite space surrounding us. The stars and planets are unusually close, stunningly bright and unimaginably vivid. The blues, purples, and blacks are beyond. The blues, purples, and blacks are deep and monolithic, signaling the endless space that stretches beyond. Am I dead? Amicus pulls me back against him, forcing me to look away from the churning universe. No, you're here. Sounds more like he's convincing himself rather than me. But where's here? Amicus is quiet for a moment, and I find myself content to lean against him for a while, just wanting to be close to him. At some point, Amicus had sat down, and I'm cradled in his lap. Considering we're not just floating around in zero gravity, I have to assume there's something solid underneath us somehow. Amicus sniffles again. I melded my mind with the archive to speak to the parents. That's all I know. I think. Did I do the same then? I was holding you when I did it. My neck. The blood. I look up at him again. Amicus, am I alive? Amicus looks at me for a moment before his face screws up and tears well up again. I don't know. He whines out the words and I immediately hug him again. Hey, I'm okay, see? I'm here. Another sobbing fit starts. And now I know why. I must have died, and now, for whatever reason, the parents have let us reunite somehow. And I know that Amicus must be wondering the same thing that I am. How long is this going to last? I try to think of what to say in case this is our last moment together, in case I am going to be absorbed again. But my mind comes up short in the weirdest of ways, only able to think of things that don't matter. So I settle on what had just happened. You're Emperor now, Amicus. Amicus nods against me, not trusting his voice at the moment, apparently. I'm so happy for you! Now he shakes his head, smearing tears against my cheek. I hate seeing him like this. I hate that this might be the last way that I'll see him. Please, don't cry. Let's just be together right now. I sit up straight and pull his head against my chest for once, cradling his massive form against me, caressing his ears and neck. I'm okay, I promise you. I went somewhere when I died. The word is so strange to say. It was really nice, full of people. I wasn't alone. It was peaceful. Amicus takes a deep, shuddering breath, finally pulling back from my hug. That's wonderful, Marco, but I'm sorry, because I'm not letting you go back there. Amicus suddenly looks resolute as he smirks through the tears. You're coming back with me. His voice breaks several times, and I can tell that he really means it. He really is certain that he's going to drag me back from the dimension of the dead. I don't know what to say. I don't know much about the parents or the afterlife, but Amicus must, so I trust him. I smile up at him. Okay. He smiles back at me, then very suddenly kisses me. It's rough and wet, and he kind of misses my lips, but I kiss back, holding him tightly. Once he finally draws back, I'm happy to see my wolf back to his usual confident self, even if he has to keep sniffling with his runny nose. I look around at the swirling cosmos again. Can you just get us out? Amicus frowns, looking around himself. This is actually my first time doing this, so I'm not sure. Amicus looks behind us, then up and down, then clears his throat. Calm? Calm, are you there? Silence. I can tell that Amicus is already out of ideas. The parents are doing this, right? I think so, though I've never spoken to them. We actually have more experience with that. Amicus grins at me, then looks back up. Maybe if we walk back? I give Amicus a strange look, and just as I'm about to point out the absurdity of walking back to Adastra through infinite space, a booming presence makes itself known. I suppose you are finished? Amicus and I both jump, and the wolf leaps to his feet, keeping me held in his arms. Who's there? Amicus shouts into the void, snarling. It's okay, Amicus, it's just the monitor. I say it like he's just an old friend of mine. Amicus doesn't lower his guard, however, and continues to growl into space. The monitor expresses his amusement in that silent way of his, but I can understand why Amicus isn't letting his guard down. It's evident in the way he's holding me, clutching me tightly to his chest. He's afraid I'm going to be taken back from him. I am too. If you are, I'll open the channel of communication now. Amicus raises an eyebrow. What the hell are you talking about? You wish to speak with the parents, correct? They wish to speak directly with you. At least, as directly as is possible. There's a pause, and I see the gears turning in Amicus's head as his ears flick. Yes. And it is done. The monitor's presence vanishes, and suddenly there's another one. Not one, but many, similar to what I had felt earlier. This is still different. Instead of melding together, these entities are distinct and separate from each other, but they're so similar that they could be copies of a single person. Their intentions feel disturbingly uniform, like they're all on the exact same path. Unlike the monitor, who at least felt to be on a similar level as any other sapient, these entities feel alien. Which is a strange thing to feel after everything I've been through. But these things are so different. So different. Well, show yourself! Amicus barks at the emptiness, somehow remaining brave in the face of all these titanic presences. You cannot see us. His mouth moves on its own, suddenly becoming empty, seeming to blend with the space around them. Amicus looks down at the human in confusion. What? He stares back. We cannot speak directly to you. Marco? But we have other methods. Amicus's face morphs from confusion to horror. Gods, Marco! He gives the human a little shake. Hey! He can hear you. He is simply occupied at the moment. Amicus bares his teeth, and he begins to shake. He's not sure if it's from anger or fear. Likely both. If you don't stop, there is no need to threaten. All is as it should be. Amicus is left to stand there, staring open-mouthed at his lover. Something ominous and dark churns in his gut. This isn't how he'd envisioned any of this at all. These are the parents? What the hell are you? We are your guide, your benevolent leader, your parent. Amicus rubs a paw over the human's forehead gently, looking into those blank, staring eyes. Leave him be, please. He is not being harmed. He shall return to a normal state after the channeling is complete. But how? Simply put, we are manipulating his behavior through the use of the lingua. Amicus shakes his head, clearly not wanting this at all, but the complete powerlessness he feels right now, it's overwhelming. The speech he'd been planning for this moment, his intention to tear apart the careless arrogance of the parents, it just dissipates. Seeing Marco just taken by them like this, it's enough to completely cow any courage he once had. As he stares at the cold eyes of the human, he begins to wonder if this is a nightmare. For a brief moment, Amicus wonders if any of this is real, what reality even is right now. That is not one for you to wonder, Amicus. All that matters is that you are the one true Emperor. What do you want? Amicus stares down at this human, feeling repulsed by what's happening. For the work of Drusus to continue, for Adastra to achieve its full potential at last, for the Galaxias to ascend. Amicus shakes his head, trying not to focus on the robotic tone of Marco's voice, on the strange way his jaw moves, forced to speak in the woven tongue. I intend to do so, but please, let the human go, and heal him, please. He didn't ask for any of this. The human is also involved, Amicus. But I involved him. It was meant to be. What? Amicus isn't sure if it's his own mind or the mind of another that brings back the memory of when he'd opened the archives, how Earth had been near the top of the list of profiled planets, how it made no sense that an uncontacted world would be on that list at all. But now it makes sense, but at the time even less sense. Amicus shakes his head, still reeling at the situation he's in, feeling like he's teetering on the edge of madness. Steady, there are many things you do not understand, things that you will never understand, and that is fine. Not all things are meant to be understood by all sapiens. But you at least understand that the humans are not uncontacted, are they? Amicus says nothing, knowing that his mind is being read. Somehow, woven culture is there. So is Chemian culture, Hindo culture, all sibling cultures. The parents go silent, and Amicus is left to stare at the but his lover has been turned into. Amicus grits his teeth. Why? Because they were an experimental microcosm, now a successful one, and it is time for them to be integrated into the Galaxias. Another moment of silence. And you want me to help do this? No. Your mission is to help unite the siblings. The first step is Chemia. That was already my intention. That is questionable. The situation is perilous. Chemia is furious after what has happened. You need more guidance. Thus, why you are here. Amicus snarls. I'm here for him! Amicus nods at Marco, with the sapient creature being used as a mouthpiece. You are here for the Galaxias, and as the Emperor, you now have the onus to know all this information, as your father knew, as his father knew, and so on. Amicus grits his teeth again, trying to comprehend what's being told to him despite being completely disturbed by what's happening to Marco. If you want a galactic integration, then why have we been competing with each other? This was assumed by the siblings themselves. Competition was never the goal. Then why not tell us that? You're supposed to be our guide. The process is slow and careful. Interference is a last resort. This very communication is a last resort as the siblings and children stray further and further from the path every day. And not just the wolves. It has taken 20,000 years to reach this point, and that time cannot be wasted. Then why are you telling only me this and not all sapiens in the Galaxias? Amicus glares at the face of the human again, stroking the face gently, hating the blank slate he's receiving. As was stated, minimal interference will result in the best outcome. Only select figures are being informed at this stage. A Galaxias developed independent of interference will serve the greater cause as a whole. The greater cause? The stars and planets shift around them, zooming forward, and for a moment Amicus feels as though he might be sick. Something dark looms on the edge of the universe, growing slowly, leeching the parts that it touches. The other approaches, and it must be confronted. At this point, Amicus feels unease pierce through his fog of confusion and anger. What other? Are we preparing for war against something? We must prepare for an event many millennia from now. This is one step of many. Amicus lets out a low growl of frustration, the vagueness of this entire situation making his head ache. But what does this have to do with Marco? Amicus shifts his hold on the human, just wanting him to come back to consciousness. He must play a role, and you must make a decision, Amicus. Everything seems to come together all at once for Amicus. All this talk of Drusus, of his and Marco's apparently fixed destinies. That decision that wolves fawned over for generations, no matter what opinion they held about Drusus himself. The choice offered by the parents to either save his empire or save his lover. Icy cold fear and dread blooms in the pit of Amicus' stomach, and slowly spreads throughout the rest of his body, seeming to leak like a frigid liquid down his groin and into his legs. Did he just piss himself? The wolf feels his limbs tremble as he pulls the human closer to his chest, lips drawing back as instinct kicks in to protect his mate. For a long while, a length of time that's hard to discern, the wolf simply stares into the abyss. He looks up into the swirling stars, clouds, and planets, trying to see these things that are controlling and manipulating him and his lover. Trembling, Amicus shakes his head, taking another step back, away, even though the presence of the parents is all-encompassing. No! Amicus's jaw clenches, hating himself for sounding so weak and afraid. Remembering who he is, Wolf squares his shoulders, glaring up into space. No, I won't make such a decision. For once, the unseen place in which the parents reside is silent and clearly observant. Amicus can feel the prickle of their all-seeing eyes on the nape of his neck. You hear me? I won't do it. I'll stay here forever if I have to. You can't involve us in this foolishness. Marco suddenly shifts in his grasp, his head turning awkwardly, leaning up in a strange way that seems unnatural, as if pulled up by strings. Amicus flinches back, feeling a chill run up his spine as he tries to stop himself from dropping the human he knows so well. Foolishness? Marco stares at him with an expression that Amicus has never seen him make before. It's cold and almost dismissive, an expression Amicus has never seen him make before. How does this situation, in which the lives of a trillion sapiens teeter on the brink of annihilation, call for such childish statements? Tell us, in what universe would attempts to avoid such a catastrophic outcome be considered foolishness? The human suddenly tilts his head in an unnatural way, leaning in closer to the wolf, and Amicus gasps, setting a large paw against Marco's face, trying to stop the strange, inhuman movements. Stop that! Don't hurt him! The human holds the position for a moment, then seems to slowly relax back into the wolf's arms. Amicus feels his heart pounding in his chest. He'd provoked, well, not even anger from the parents, maybe just annoyance, yet the experience had been terrifying. Seeing Marco twist and contort in such a way was unnerving, sure, but the parents had meant to do it, and the wolf was beginning to realize why they're using Marco as a puppet. Anger and fear battle for control over the wolf, before the latter finally wins out, remembering what type of decision he might have to make. Please, there must be another way. I can't choose between these two things. There's a pause in the air, and Amicus feels his knees about to give out, preparing to throw himself at the imaginary feet of these monolithic beings. He'd beg until the end of time. Wolven pride be damned. What decision do you speak of? Amicus glances up at the stars. The decision presented to Drusus, the one decided for him by Mira 10 millennia ago. Amicus frowns, knowing that the parents already know what he's talking about, becoming further distressed that they're making him vocalize things that are so obvious. Oh, Amicus, don't you know the proclivity of your own people to twist and distort, to aggrandize and romanticize the truth? Amicus is quiet, waiting, heart still hammering, simply feeling numb at this point. We do not rely on wolven myth to inform you of parental intention. Only we will speak the truth to you. Amicus lets out a little growl, anger overcoming fear again. Then what is it? Why torment me like this? Several moments of silence pass, and Amicus growls again, frustrated at the way he's being treated, how his emotions are being manipulated and sculpted like a mound of clay. This isn't what he'd been taught at all. Had his father known the parents to be like this? His grandfather? Amicus wishes that he'd been warned somehow. As the silence drags on, Wolf tries to deaden his emotions, to not give these entities any sort of hint as to what he might be feeling, wanting to refuse this blatant attack on his own agency. Despite how futile he knows that must be. You can bring back your lover. At this very moment, time stands nearly still on your plane. Marco's body and mind are still salvageable. Amicus's heart feels as though it might leap from his mouth, his hold on Marco tightening. How? But only if you submit your will to the benevolent. But only if you submit yourself to the benevolent will of the parents. Will you? Amicus furrows his brow in confusion, unsure of what this all could mean. But I've already done so. Ever since I was a pup, we've been told to. After this experience, your mind will waver. You're unsure as to what our intentions truly are. This will be the moment in which you want to question, to doubt our will. You must overcome such moments. Our will is what is best for the Galaxias and the universe as a whole. Amicus stares for a moment. And if I don't agree, then we shall let the human pass on as he naturally should, and we shall wait for future Emperor to take your place. Amicus shakes his head, not wanting to believe this is true, that this is the way that the leaders of the Galaxias function. It must be done. The wolf is quiet, for once wishing that he isn't in such a position, wishing that he could hide away in the quiet countryside with his human, to live a normal life. That is not your calling. It never was. I know. Amicus whispers, more to himself than the parents. There's a long moment of silence in which Amicus simply stares into space, contemplating what it means to give up any true freedom, to submit himself to the absolute authority of the galaxy. Will you submit? Amicus takes a deep breath. Will my decision affect Marco's free will? You said you have plans for him as well. He will be allowed to make his own decision. We will tell you of his mission once you make your decision. Amicus stifles another growl, hating that his human is being forced into this as well. Will you submit? Amicus closes his eyes, feeling his anger and resilience slowly drain away. Then he opens them. I submit. Blue light swirls in front of my eyes in intricate spiraling tendrils. It's beautiful. and as I begin to focus, I see a blurry gray shape in the middle of it all. Even before I'm able to fully see him, I know it's my wolf. I smile and reach up, cupping at the warm, furry form. At some point along this little journey, I've stopped caring about whether the things I see are real or not. I'm just happy that I'm seeing him. He smiles down at me. Hey. Hey. I lie quietly in his arms for a while, just enjoying the comforting blue glow. I'm reminded of when I first met Amicus, when our ship stalled out in the blue dust cloud, and he'd finally revealed to me his botched plan. I feel so distant now, like it was years ago, rather than just months. I take a deep breath and something about it feels strange, almost like something mechanical is moving in my neck. I reach up, touching my fingers to my throat, and for a moment, they brush against something that feels like a thin line of flesh. But Amicus reaches down and moves my hand away, pressing it to my chest instead. You're alright. You're gonna be fine now. What? That's when I also realize that my voice sounds strange. It still sounds like me, but there's something slightly off about it. Like it's a little higher, maybe even just a little robotic. I frown. Amicus presses my chest firmly, comfortingly. It's okay. I know it might feel a bit strange, but you won't even notice it after a few days. What is he talking about? Again, I lay quietly in his arms as I gather my thoughts. The fight, the dagger, the darkness, the parents, then I look up at Amicus in question. What happened? I try to ignore the strange, soundless, mechanical clicking feeling in my throat, while also trying to get used to my voice. It's like hearing myself in a recording, just not quite right. Amicus chuckles, sounding exhausted, relieved, and maybe even a little sad at the same time. Quite a bit happened, Marco. But the parents, I thought they wanted us to meet them. Amicus's gentle smile wavers for a moment. Well, they did. I met them. What? I don't remember. I rack my memory, but nothing comes to mind. You lost consciousness when it happened. I frown at that, wondering why that would happen, but Amicus doesn't offer an explanation. I look down at my chest, and instead of the coating of blood I expect to see, I'm clean and bare, aside from a few small wet spots on my chest. I suppose Amicus had been a bit more emotional before I'd woken up. I look back at him, then press my face against his body, and he responds by hugging me close to his chest for a moment. So it's over? They decided to bring me back? My voice is muffled against his fur. My strange, not quite right voice. Amicus loosens his hold on me, allowing me to look back up at his face. Yes, it's over. The tension that I'd held in my chest ever since I arrived, ever since being abducted from my bedroom in Italy, it all releases slowly. For once, I feel light and free, and I sag in the wolf's arms, sighing deeply. Even now, I'm starting to get used to the new feelings in my throat. I love you. I love you too. I smile up at him, and despite everything being over, I can't help but notice that he seems a bit sad too. I rest a hand against his chest. You alright? Amicus laughs loudly, shaking my entire body. Aside from nearly losing everything I hold dear, I suppose I'm alright, yes. I try to sit up, but Amicus keeps me reclined gently but firmly. You sure? You seem upset. The big wolf sighs deeply, and I feel his torso puff out against my side and shoulder. There are things I must tell you, but later. It's not important right now. That tension that had been so mercifully loosened in my chest suddenly appears again, albeit in a much smaller way. I want to ask more, but for now, I just want to rest. Well, as long as I'm not going to pass out and wake up completely confused again. I feel like that's all I've been doing the past month. Amicus huffs in amusement. Yes, you do have a knack for such things. We go quiet again, and it's a nice kind of quiet. We're both just basking in the peaceful aftermath of a months-long struggle. After a while, my wolf meets my eyes again. Marco? Yes, Amicus? I'm sorry. Sorry? For everything. For taking you from your planet, for involving you in Adastran politics, for acting as if I knew better. Even if it was part of the parents' plan, it still doesn't make it right. And I'm sorry. Plan? Amicus lets out a small, tired laugh, shaking his head. Again, I'll tell you later. Let's just be together for now. I nod in agreement, ignoring the clicks in my neck, clinging to my wolf. happy to be in this quiet little corner of the universe, undisturbed by politics, mad emperors, or monolithic space entities. The following days are strange to say the least. After what happened in the amphitheater, the wolven population has seemingly taken great interest in me. I guess I'm sort of a celebrity at this point. I got my first taste of this while lounging in the dining room, only half paying attention to the screens when I realized that it's a reenactment of the trial by combat between Amicus and Cato. My character, portrayed by a small wolf wearing a rather uncanny human mask, jumps in at the last second to plunge the dagger into Cato's back. He's then stabbed directly in the throat by Cato, instead of slashed, and stands for several seconds, clutching his neck while Amicus tears out Cato's throat, then arrives just in time to catch me as he swoons back. I have to stop watching at this point, the memories of what happened too fresh and traumatizing for me to see it played out, even if it's terribly acted out. While I suppose it's nice to be liked by the general population, I can't help but feel it's for the wrong reasons. I'm definitely being portrayed as a noble savage of some sorts, so in love with my master that I broke the rules to save him, or I just didn't understand the rules well enough to abide by them. Either way, it makes me feel kind of uncomfortable. Meanwhile, Amicus is kept busy, of course. The quiet moment I'd had with him in the archives is actually the last really long moment alone I've had with him since. Almost immediately after, Amicus is whisked away to various ceremonies and meetings as everything becomes official. Amicus is the Emperor now, and he seems to be taking to it rather well, especially after the incredibly stressful events preceding it. His personality has always been silly, and a bit immature, but after taking the throne, he's on a persona of cool, calm leader. It's a side of him that I've seen occasional flashes of, and while I'm happy to see him fitting the role so well, I can't help but feel a bit sad that he has to quash that playful, outgoing side of him. I suppose it's one of those parts of having to grow up. I try to stay out of his way for now, knowing he has so much to do, but on the second day of the trial, I'm told by Calm that Amicus wants to speak with me. I open the door and immediately hear Virginia's voice raised slightly in annoyance. No! Lux is the city in desperate need of funds right now. Lex is doing very well. Well, I'm sorry, but the names are rather similar, are they not? I meant Lux anyway. Even if you meant it that way, I can guarantee you the Triumvirates won't be pleased hearing you mistakenly refer to which city they are from. Alright, calm down. I'll be sure to remember that. And don't yell at me in front of the Triumvirates, please. You only give my critics more weaponry if I'm seen allowing my own sister to treat me in such a way. All the more reason not to make mistakes, then. The two seem to realize that I'm there finally and cease their argument. Marco, we were just finishing our conversation. Were we? I'm going to drill you on all of this again on our flight to the city. Virginia makes her way past me, pausing to rest upon my shoulder. Maybe I should put you in charge of my brother's studies. At least he listens to you. The she-wolf rolls her eyes before disappearing through the door, leaving us in silence so that Amicus's big heavy sigh seems to resonate through the entire room. Gods, she's relentless. Isn't that a good thing? I suppose, but it doesn't make it any easier to deal with. Amicus is walking toward me and immediately takes me up into a deep hug, followed by a kiss. I kiss back, feeling Amicus's tense body relax against mine, and I feel happy at the idea that I might be able to relieve his stress so easily. He finally draws back, smiling as he does. How have you been? I know I've been rather absent lately, but I know official business and everything, I've been okay, just trying to adjust to all the new. I sweep a hand around me, then hesitantly bring it back to my neck, the wound that the parents had somehow healed, my trachea and vocal cords having been replaced and repaired with something. I try not to think about it, and I've gotten used to it for the most part. Well, I hope you've been adjusting smoothly then. Amicus brushes a paw through my hair, looking me over. What was it you wanted to talk about? Amicus pulls his paw back, and the look on his face starts to worry me. Is it about what happened with the parents? At this point, I know that something involving me had happened while I'd been unconscious. For whatever reason, I'd been kept unaware of the conversation that happened between Amicus and the parents. Amicus nods, rubbing an arm awkwardly. Yes, it's rather complicated, so it may take a moment for me to explain it all. Wolf guides me to the sofa, and we sit side by side as Amicus drapes an arm around my shoulder. Over the next few minutes, he tells me of the deal he made with the parents, that he'd submit himself to their will, if only to bring me back to life. It's a similar decision that I had to make, and I shake my head. I don't like that. Why are they doing this to us? Amicus shrugs loosely against me, shaking his head as well. I honestly don't know, but I can tell you that my view of them has changed quite a bit since what happened. So what? Now you have to do whatever they say or something bad happens to me? Again, my hand drifts up to my neck, wondering if there's something more to the mechanics in my throat. An irrational part of my mind wonders if maybe there's some type of self-destruct mechanism built into it. I shudder at the thought of my throat suddenly exploding. I doubt that, but I feel that maybe they would make it difficult for us to stay together if I did. Our meeting together, it was planned by the parents. This was something I'd sort of assumed on my own, but I still bristle nonetheless. See, they're using our love against us. This is just fucked up. Amicus just nods quietly, but draws me closer with his arms around my shoulders. So they just draw us together. I was like the most compatible human to you, so now they can make sure we do as we're told so we can stay together? Again, Amicus is quiet, just holding me. I don't like this. Neither do I. So if your job is to bring the Galaxias together, what's my job? Amicus takes another slow, deep breath, which only spikes my anxiety. I realize that the release I felt in the archive room was only temporary. In retrospect, I suppose it was a bit silly that I thought everything would be fine after Amicus became Emperor. This is only the beginning. Well, this is what I wanted to talk to you about. I wait, feeling Amicus steel himself for what he's about to say, and I feel my anxiety grow. How bad could this actually be? Then he lets out the breath with a rush of words, seemingly trying to get the explanation out all at once. The parents told me that your mission is to begin the process of integrating humans into the Galaxias. I'm only starting to absorb that when Amicus takes another breath and starts another slew of words. They want you to return to Earth and complete a series of steps to begin the integration process, a process that will take... Amicus suddenly winces, as though the words themselves hurt. That'll take around 8 years to complete. The last bit takes the longest for me to comprehend. 8 years? 8 years. Like I'll have to go to Earth for 8 years and do a bunch of crap to bring my planet into the Galaxias? Amicus nods, and I see the deep sadness on his face. This explains why he wasn't exactly happy after we'd escaped the parental dimension. I find myself at a loss for words, even though there's so much I want to ask. Amicus tries to fill the silence. Your planet won't be conquered or anything. Rather, you're already on a sibling-like level. You're unique in that you aren't exactly a sibling species, but you won't be under the control of another civilization, if that makes sense. Aside from the parents, of course. That's a relief, I suppose. Though the more I learn about the parents, the more I'm unsure about any of this. While I'd once worried about the wolves invading Earth, I'm not sure I'd want the parents to be doing the same. At least they're very hands-off, I guess. In the 8 years, will I be able to see you? I see the corners of Amicus's muzzle dip down deeply into a frown before stubbornly pulling back up, the way they often did when he was trying not to tear up. No, but I discussed with them those supplements that we take to extend our lifespans. You'll be able to take them, to make those 8 years seem more negligible. The way Amicus is talking, fast-paced and upbeat, tells me that he's trying to make this sound like it isn't a huge deal at all. But it is. 8 years. The arm around my shoulder brings me to a full-on hug now, pressing my face against his chest. I know, it seems like a long time, and it is, but after this, we'll be free. Amicus's voice is strained, like there's a heavy weight on his chest. We both know we won't. And I'm gonna have to do all of that alone? Couldn't you come help me? Now I sound like a child. I can see Amicus's eyes glistening, but he stubbornly continues to smile. You won't need my help. You're fully capable on your own. Besides, we'll see each other again as soon as your series of planned steps are completed. Of course, over the course of 8 years. Once we reach that point, we'll be able to finally relax and enjoy our lives. I'm still trying to absorb the idea of a years-long mission. A mission that involves introducing all of Earth to the idea of a sapient life beyond our planet. The idea is harrowing enough, but after being strung along by the parents like this, I have to wonder. It seems like after we accomplish every step, there's a bigger one right after. I feel my heart rate pick up. Rather than becoming angry, I'm just feeling kind of desperate. How much more are they going to ask from us? This whole thing is just puppeteering. We're not in control of anything at all. Marco. Amicus reaches out to me as I stand up. Please, I know this is hard. I've been trying to figure out a way not to drag you into this, but the parents seem intent. This isn't fair, though. We paid our dues. I fucking died! Again, I sound like a kid. I can't help myself. This really isn't fair at all. I didn't ask for any of this. Originally, I had Amicus to blame. He was the one that brought me here in the first place. Now, though, knowing that everything was planned and orchestrated by the parents, I feel powerless, like I didn't have any choice from the very beginning. I don't even have a say in this. But you do. I haven't gotten to that part yet. Amicus has his paws raised, and I can see that he's still trying to hold back tears. I want to lash out at something, but I know this isn't his fault, especially now. I try to calm myself, taking a few deep breaths and swallowing hard. They told me you can make a decision, just as I made mine. I'm quiet for a moment, still breathing heavily. You can choose not to accept the mission. They will not force you to do it. We have around 9 months before the mission begins. I stare at the wolf, letting those words sink in. And if I don't accept, what are the consequences? That deep frown returns to Amicus's face. Well, they won't provide transport back to Earth. Of course, I'll likely be able to set it up for you now, but considering that the integration will be delayed, I'll be disallowed from returning to see you. So either I do what they say, or I never see you again. Well, you could choose not to return to Earth. I'm not suggesting that be your decision, but it is one of the possibilities. I look away, just feeling terrible. And the main reason for that is because I feel like I have to do this. Even though I know Amicus has his doubts about the parents now, I know he still believes in our end goal. And if I just give up on it all now, I need to go think about this. I'm starting to turn away when Amicus abruptly stands up. I think he's going to come after me, maybe wrap me up in another hug, so he keeps his paws behind his back, looking at me with an expression of stoic duty. Alright, I'll be heading out to the city for part of the day to visit with the Triumvirate, and whatever you choose, Marco, I will fully support you. It takes me a minute to realize that Amicus is using his official face right now, and it's strange to have him use it on me. Even though I know he's doing it to make things easier for me, to not sway my decision based on his emotions, I hate that he has to do it. I shake my head and turn away, walking out of the room even as I hear Amicus make a strangled noise as he cuts himself off and holds back from saying whatever he was going to say. I walk briskly through the hallways, trying to gather my thoughts. I just want to spend time with Amicus, go back to Earth, see my family, come back to Adastra. But no, these parents are meddling with my lives, seemingly rendering every choice I make meaningless. If they can do all and see all, why are they messing with me and Amicus like this? I'm lost in thought as I turn a corner and run smack into something soft, furry, and white. Oof, what in the name of the gods? Takes me a moment to recognize the voice, probably because of how disoriented I am from running into him. Sorry, Cassius. I finally focus on the indignant wolf as he angrily smooths down his fur. Watch where you're going. You could have knocked me to the floor. You know what a catastrophe that could result in? Despite his outrage, I'm actually kind of happy to see Cassius back to his old self. Just 2 days ago, he was bedridden, though recovering. A combination of Virginia inducing him to vomit and a quick delivery of an antidote left Cassius in a position to fully recover. Hello to you too, Cass. Cassius fixes me with a narrow-eyed glare. Since when did I give you permission to use my shortened name, human? I shrug, simply adjusting my robe after having it disheveled from the collision. How are you feeling? Changing the subject, I see. What the fuck was that? I can at least eat solid foods now without retching, but I doubt I'll ever be able to drink wine again without doing so. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sure you are. I shake my head, wondering why the wolf has to be so sour all the time. Maybe it's a side effect of always being second in line for everything. I see something similar in Furry. You just go about handling it differently. Maybe it's also because of his illness. Always seen as weak and needing help, and he reacted by being a dick. Then again, it could just be because he is a dick. So, what are your plans now that I've abdicated the throne and I'm leaving in disgrace? You're not leaving in disgrace. I think the people are going to be really... I'm already being made fun of for being one of the shortest serving emperors in the history of the Empire. I'm the main topic in all of the comedies at the moment. Cassius takes in a deep breath, closing his eyes. Anyway, Marco, I wanted to thank you. I almost get whiplash from the sudden change in tone and topic. What? Oh, don't make me say it again. I'm simply thankful for you putting the Empire on a course that is somewhat tolerable, at least. As opposed to being ruled by Cato. Yes, while I might not believe that my brother is what is best for the Empire, at least he cares for it, and I suppose that's all I can hope for. Weren't you negotiating a position with Amicus? Cassius looks at me suspiciously, though I have no idea why. I suppose almost being assassinated and also being sabotaged by everyone in the palace has made him a bit weary. I suppose he'll tell you anyway, so yes, I'm looking to become the chief of social affairs. He rolls his eyes at my lack of reaction. In other words, I will be making sure that Adastra's most vulnerable are taken care of, that all will someday receive the financial, social, and especially medical care that they need. I perk up. Oh, good! That's kind of what you were all about with your campaigning, right? Yes, it would be nice to focus all my energy on that rather than the bothersome politics that come with being emperor. I don't envy Amicus. He eyes me closely. I know you're very close to him, so please, if I must ask anything of you, is to make sure that he does not forget those outside the Triumvir cities. Their situation is desperate, and if we are truly going to reap fortune from an alliance, then they should be the first to benefit, not the Adastrian elites. It's one of those rare moments that Cassius is being completely genuine with me, so I nod earnestly. Of course. I also plan on making sure that Amicus remembers the Wolven children, and to right the wrongs of what the past rulers had done to them. There's a lull in the conversation, so I try to think of something to say. Thank Cassius for in return. Thank you for understanding our position, for deciding to step down when we asked. You threatened me with outright humiliation if I did not. I try to hold in a sigh of my own at the wolf's frustrating attitude, even if my attempt at some form of diplomacy with him was clumsy. Well, yeah, thanks anyway. Cassius grunts non-committally, then looks past me. Anyway, I must be going to the city. I have an appointment. That's when I remember Alex. I never did see Cassius' reaction to finding out about the cat's treachery. Amicus had been furious when I told him, and had practically had to hold him back from marching out into the gardens and strangling the cat himself. He was especially furious when I told him that I'd made a deal with Alex to keep him from facing the consequences of sabotaging the entire empire. Amicus had settled on banishing Alexios from the palace to some high-security apartments in the center of Adastra City. Cassius had been visiting him there ever since. While I don't know what the state of their relationship is, I suppose even high treason isn't enough to stop Cassius from seeing the cat again. He must be pretty close, even closer than I'd initially thought. I'm curious but stop myself from asking, as I know that would only lead to more glares and sneers from the wolf. So instead, I bow and step aside, a bit surprised when Cassius bows in return, even if it's mostly just a half-hearted nod. I watch the white wolf disappear out through the main entrance, and I wait a few moments before taking the same route out into the gardens. While the conversation with Cassius had distracted me for a bit, my mind wanders back to what Amicus had just told me. I can't stop the feeling of constriction that seems to wrap around me, bound to the will of these supposedly all-knowing creatures. I sit for a while on a bench, contemplating everything while my hand absently caresses my repaired neck. I pressed a bit harder against the skin a few times, and didn't like the unfamiliar shapes and edges that I felt. I'd asked Amicus how the parents had done it, how they had the time to place the machinery in my neck and also make me start breathing again. Of course, it turns out it's one of those parental tech things that no one really understands. It seems to have happened instantaneously, as if I'd been whisked away somewhere else to have surgery before being placed back in the archives. Apparently, when Amicus's father had asked the parents to restore Cato's sight, it had just happened overnight. The old wolf surprising everyone who walked into the dining room with his brand new visor. That had been over a decade ago. And that gets me wondering why the parents did that if they knew Cato would go on to do the things he did. He blatantly got in the way of their plans. Why would they let him hold such an influential position in the Empire, let alone restore his vision? Interference is to be kept at a minimum, I can practically hear the monitor say. I sigh, just sort of wishing that the parents didn't exist at all, that this other wasn't eating at the edges of our universe, which is apparently the root cause of all of this. That's something else I don't understand. From what I gathered, the Galaxias had already known about the other, but vaguely. Amicus had almost described it to me when I first arrived here, and had been told that all life originated from the same source, except for the other. A different type of life, so different from us that we can barely understand them. But now we know that they're out to get us, or something. I can't help but feel so distant from all of this, the result of the struggle between us and them being a millennia away. We don't even know how many millennia. As I've become more and more depressed over all this, I hear footsteps on the path. I look up, half expecting to see Alex, even as I remember he's been banished from the palace. It's Neferu, and he's strolling along the pathways, paws behind his back with his usual suave smile plastered on his muzzle. I have to wonder how he keeps that expression on all the time. It's clear he doesn't see me until he comes a bit closer. When he does spot me, his ears flick up and I get a glimpse of white teeth as his smile broadens. I smile back even though I'm not in the best mood to chat at the moment. Still, I scoot over to make room on the bench, and Neferu greets me with a bow along with a Hotep be with you, before he sits next to me, crossing one leg over the other. Beautiful day. He says it wistfully, and I just nod in agreement. Even though I can see you're not enjoying it as much as I am, is everything alright, Marco? I'm about to give him a generic answer before I sigh, leaning back on the bench. No, not really, Neferu. I find that a bit surprising considering the way things have gone in the past few days. I shrug. I mean, aside from almost dying, I guess everything here is good, but out there, I nod up at the sky, at space. I just don't know what to do. Perhaps I could offer some advice? Remember that Amicus has told me to keep the revelations about human civilization a secret, at least until the parents give further instruction. I don't know. I think I'm just stressed about going home, about how I'm going to do it, you know? I definitely understand, for I'm in a similar boat. Unfortunately, I have little advice on that particular matter. I glance over at him, watching as he rhythmically bounces a black foot about, wiggling the toes and claws. Is Kemia still pissed about what happened? Oh yes, furious. They're still threatening to cut off all diplomatic relations with Adastra if Amicus doesn't make things right somehow. Make things right? Yes, despite the fact that my family very nearly despises me, they actually despise their name has been sullied by woven disrespect. How you were almost executed? That, and also the fact that Cato released the footage of his attack on my person before the scheduled execution. It's been in heavy rotation on the news channels ever since. Oh, I haven't watched much Adastran TV after seeing the reenactments of my own death, but I guess I've been missing Neferu getting kicked in the balls over and over again. Well, you know wolves, they just like any sort of drama. It's been spread across the entire Galaxias. I suppose seeing a Chemian in such a position is rather amusing to everyone, siblings and children alike. I look over at Neferu again, but his light, carefree demeanor continues as he simply seems to be soaking in the scenery. Are you doing alright? Neferu looks at me, smile becoming a bit more warm. I'm fine, Marco, but if I'm being truthful, I am embarrassed. But that's nothing new for me. I frown. I can count the number of times I've seen you embarrassed on one hand, Neferu. You're downright shameless. A smile to lighten the words, and Neferu just chuckles. You probably know by this point that I'm not often genuine. It comes with being a diplomat and the Pharaoh's son. There's a lull in the conversation as we both just watch out the gardens, listening to the birds and watching the bees hover from flower to flower. That's when I'm reminded of something. So, what made the Chemians want to start an alliance? Isn't it pretty groundbreaking for siblings to work together? Isn't that against the purpose of the Galaxias? I play dumb like I don't already know it isn't. Neferu quirks an eyebrow at me. That's a surprising question. Well, to put it simply, we studied the earliest history of the Galaxias and came to the conclusion that it was never the intent of the parents for us to be competitors. If you don't know, the goal of a sibling race and its children is to achieve parental status. To do that, we must be able to achieve intergalactic travel. We're slowly realizing that this may not be possible without the cooperation of all sapient life in the galaxy. I nod in understanding. So it seems like the Chemians were already hip to this grand plan, either by actually figuring it out themselves or with the help of their own parent. This makes me wonder if they might know more about the thing lingering on the edges of the universe. Do you know much about the other? Now Neferu turns on the bench to really look at me, furrowing his brows. Another interesting question. Did you have some sort of experience with the parents when they healed your wounds? Yeah, kind of. Just really vague stuff, so I'm curious about it is all. I try to make it sound like it's not a big deal. Well, it is an entity that spreads throughout the universe every few billion years. It originated from somewhere other than the original source of life, the source from which we all came. His choice of words is confusing me. Is it like, alive? Is it alive like you and I? No, not really. It is more of a machine, I suppose, on the edge of life, but it needs sapient life to exist. Oh, like a virus? Yes, though even viruses originated from the original source. The other is truly something different. And it feeds on life, our life, I mean? First, I should say that what we know about it is very, very limited, and the majority of that information is likely wrong. Really just ghost stories. Well, what are these ghost stories? Nefaru sighs and realizes he's not exactly interested in this topic. How to put it? Well, it's thought that in the half dozen or so times that the other has spread through our part of the universe, it has left behind small, patchy portions of itself. It is technically all around us, but very weak. Though it is the though it is thought that highly concentrated portions of it attached to tangible things or occasionally pass through us. I feel a little tingle down my spine. And what does it do? Nefaru shakes his head. I'm sure your people have stories of phenomena that are unexplainable. Perhaps an abandoned building that is inhabited by malicious spirits. Possibly a creature that defies all logical explanation, yet sporadically appears in a particular forest. I swear, he almost described bumblebees. Like, I swear to God. A bumblebee defies all logic. They are so fat that they should not be able to fly. They're literally tiny pandas with tiny, tiny wings, and yet they're able to fly. Wait, like supernatural stuff? I give the jackal an incredulous look, and he shrugs and laughs. So the stories say. They also say that sapient consciousness is used by the other to project these manifestations, that the sapient's reaction to these projections feeds the entity. Personally, I feel that the legends surrounding the other are simply a catch-all for anything that is feared, or poorly understood, or just the product of a bored society. I think back to what little I know about ghosts, monsters, even aliens or UFOs, and immediately, the idea is too ridiculous for me to accept. Why haven't I heard of this while I've been here? You probably have, but just didn't understand the topic at the time. Either way, it's never a serious worry on anyone's mind considering how rarely this entity makes contact with our side of the universe. I just stare at the ground, not really sure of what to say. Like Nefaru, I find myself not very interested in the topic anymore, like our discussion moves on. We talk of Nefaru's plans when he might return home and how I might help him secure the alliance. Eventually, he gets up to return to his room for a nap, leaving me to sit on the bench in silence. If I'm being honest, the conversation has left me feeling a bit strange about this whole intergalactic war the parents are preparing for. It sounds like we're getting ready to fight off an army of space ghosts rather than anything real. I sit there for a long while, opening my mind a bit, kind of hoping that the monitor will swing by and dump a little more information on me that I can work with, even though I know that's not really in his nature. The problem is that I already know that I'll probably do this mission. In the end, I kind of feel like I have to trust in these parents, despite how awful they're being to me in Amicus. It's for the good of all sapients, right? And if it isn't, well, I don't want to imagine we're doomed at the hands of some mechanical space gods. Things stay predictably quiet as I'm thinking about heading back to Amicus's room to see if he's returned. Calm's voice makes me jump. Amicus would like you to know that he is currently in the bath, and if you would like to, you can join him. However, he wants to make it explicitly clear that it is your choice and that if you need more time... Thanks, Calm, I'll head there now. Yes, Marco. I immediately spot Amicus as the door slides open, and I see the wolf jolt up from leaning back against the edge of the pool before quickly leaning back again, raising a paw casually. I walk through the steamy air to stand behind Amicus, next to the bench, and he looks back at me with a gentle smile. Soak with me? I nod wordlessly and slip out of my robes and underwear before walking to the edges of the pool. With a little hop, I dip in quietly all at once, mostly used to the scalding temperature at this point. As I come up, Amicus reaches out to me and I press up against him, fitting against the curve of his chest in that familiar, easy way. How's the meeting with the triumvirates? Good. Lots of seemingly pointless talk and etiquette, but as you and I know, it's necessary. As long as there aren't any riots. Yes, as long as there aren't any of those. We sit in the hot water for a while, and I enjoy the way it makes my worries seem so far away, locked behind the doors to the bath. I should do this more often. But of course, it's the main thing on Amicus's mind right now. He clears his throat nervously. How did thinking about... did you make your decision? No? Sorry. Amicus trails off in the most awkward way possible, and I laugh a little bit, though it's more of a sad laugh. A little, but I don't think I have a choice. That any of us really have a choice. That's not true. You can choose. This is all meant to happen. It's the entire reason that any of this has happened at all. I have a purpose, and I don't know. I don't really want to cause delays, drag some other human into this, especially if it will help your empire in the end. Amicus grumbles. Well, I don't believe that you should be forced to take on duties that were thrust upon you without your consent. It's cruel, and I want you to choose what you feel is right. I give Amicus a look. Hasn't that been your whole life? Well, yes, but I'm talking about you. I smirk. Oh, I see. The silly, dumb ape who can't handle big boy responsibilities. Amicus's reaction to my teasing is instant and visceral. No, I would never. Sorry, I was just kidding. I shouldn't make fun about that. Amicus settles back, still looking concerned. It's alright. I just don't want you to ever feel that way again. Amicus sighs deeply. Also, I do believe we would have somehow met even without the parents intervening. Now I really give Amicus a look. Seriously? Of course, something this special can't be stopped by the likes of time and space. Amicus starts pulling me into his body, nuzzling me. Anyway, I'm not completely sure yet. I need time to think about it, and we do have 9 months. Take your time, but if you do choose to go, you must promise me one thing. I feel a little apprehension in that. Yes? Well, 8 years is quite a while for a human lifespan, so I know you rejected them initially, but please start taking the life extension medication. There is a formula, especially for primates, and I need you around for as long as I am, Marco. I realize then how well Amicus has taken this whole 8 years thing, and I have to wonder if he's just trying to make it sound less bad than it actually is. 8 years is a long time, whether you're a human or a wolf. I'd actually forgotten about the lifespan extending medication after Amicus had told me about it. For whatever reason, extending my life by decades, even hundreds of years, didn't really appeal to me at the time. But now, all I want is more time, so I nod. Of course. And we're going to leave off there. So, how are we all doing after the whole, you're here thing? Or reunion, whatever it's called. Let me check the files, and I'll tell you what it's actually called. Project. Adastra 17. Game. We made it. The thing of Amicus looking down at you in front of the archives. I swear to God. But anyways, I think I have shit that I need to do. So stay safe and have a good night.